Hey folks, lyarri here. Today we're reacting to X Exclusives by Scott the Woz. It looks like he's eating a bar of soap, and I really want to see that. So let's go.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Divorce rates are rising, so thought I'd help with that.
Oh.
I need to rethink my pricing.
The console exclusive, a reason to purchase said console, or something to make pre-existing console owners realize. It's true! My is big! These games you always associate with a specific console brand. Mario, Zelda, Pokemon on Nintendo, Uncharted, God of War, Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation. Sneakers. Exclusives are more than just incentives to own a system. They can be that system's entire identity. So, when a game we've always seen as an exclusive to one specific console jump ship to another, or more specifically, a competitor, I'm just gonna say it, it's an out-of-body experience.
Where am I?
X exclusives is what I like to call it. Games that were once exclusive to one system now spreading the good word around town. Many don't care for exclusives as they believe that's suppressing innovation. If Nintendo just released their games on the PC, I'm sure two of your problems would be solved. See, if we didn't have to deal with the graphical caps on consoles like the Nintendo Switch and everything just released on high-end PCs that everybody owned, well, your copy of Loco Roco would look a whole lot better. Plus, it's good for the consumer. And more options, less reason to buy a console that has nearly all the same features, same specs, same games as the one you already own just for one title you want. Let them go all over the place. Oh, hey, my wife is fucking everybody in the neighborhood.
Good for the consumer.
And the biggest supporter of this movement is easily Microsoft. Nowadays, they publish a few select titles on both Nintendo and Sony's platforms, but they've been at this for longer than you may think. What? Microsoft, the best of entertainment packs for Game Boy Color. A collection of casual games you'd find on Windows PCs. We got Free Cell, Minesweeper, Ski Free. Some serious classics anybody with a Windows PC from the 90s and 2000s would remember being pre-installed on their computers.
My great-grandma would love that.
The same hardware as... Take your pick. This is bizarre to look back on, but keep in mind, Microsoft wasn't a competitor in the console space yet. It's like how Sony technically published some games themselves on Nintendo systems prior to the PlayStation. Doesn't make it any less interesting. Hell, they did a few more Game Boy Color games, another entertainment pack release, 6-in-1 puzzle collection, and Microsoft Pinball Arcade. These may all be just...
Okay, Pinball though, that's a banger. I remember that shit on like Windows XP or whatever. I hope that was... Maybe I'm just imagining things. I swear there was a pinball game. It was so fun.
Game Boy Color versions of crazy simple pre-installed Windows games most people play when there was nothing better to do, but these games were iconic time wasters for a reason. As basic as they were, for a brief moment, they kept us from thinking about war. So having these on the go to whip out at a moment's notice, it makes a ton of sense. Connectimals on the iPhone. How was it a Connectimal then? So one of the big games Microsoft pushed alongside the Kinect peripheral for Xbox 360 was Connectimals. Interact with a virtual pet with the aid of the Kinect motion sensing camera.
So cute.
A year later, a version for mobile phones released, and the reason I
never had an
Xbox
Xbox
up until now is I've been trying to figure out my response to this ever since it happened. I finally did.
I don't know.
You can't use the Kinect here. Why is it still called Connectimals? You know, Microsoft has a bit of history releasing or at least licensing their games for release on handheld platforms. They may have purchased the developer Rare, who made countless games for Nintendo, and while they could only make console games for the Xbox line, they could still develop some Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS titles, albeit not published by Microsoft.
Mr. Pants
Pinata
himself.
Pocket Paradise. That was a trip to see. It may be its own original game for the handheld, but it's still a Microsoft-owned series on Nintendo, which isn't so wild anymore. In 2014, Microsoft bought out the company Mojang, developer of Minecraft.
Oh, really?
A game already on numerous platforms, a game promised for release on competing platforms, and Microsoft pledged to keep Minecraft on all of them, while also expanding to new territory. Some call it an invasion. Yeah, taking Minecraft Wii U Edition, or PlayStation 4 Edition, Vita Edition, new 3DS Edition, whatever, turning them over and seeing Microsoft Studios on the back was surreal. And later on, when Mojang updated the game, you could sign into your Xbox account on the Nintendo Switch version of Minecraft and get Xbox notifications on that platform.
That's so weird.
Minecraft was simply too big to keep exclusive to one platform, though. Sure, Microsoft could have very easily delisted and recalled all the other versions and make the series an Xbox exclusive. However, Minecraft didn't become the best-selling game of all time by limiting its reach. This game's accessibility and far reach were too important to give up just to try and sell a couple million extra consoles. And if anything, I think this made Microsoft far more comfortable with releasing titles on competing platforms, which they already were a bit. This is something they've always done. I mean, Microsoft Office released on the Mac, point one for Scott. Hell, even Halo 1 released on the Mac. Microsoft Game Studios logo on the packaging and all. With the type of company Microsoft is, services and applications like this,
Marathon was a Mac OS game though. See, I watched the Mandalore video series on Marathon, so I'm aware, knowledgeable. It makes sense that Halo was on Mac.
It makes sense to widen your market by releasing versions on competing hardware. And while it took them a while to fully apply that thought process to their video game division, they finally started to with select titles. Cuphead was one of the first major Xbox One releases to appear on Nintendo Switch and eventually the PS4. Though it's not a Microsoft-published game, they did help out with the initial release.
I played it on
PC. A timed
PC.
exclusive. Super Lucky's Tale went multi-platform as the enhanced new Super Lucky's Tale, no longer published by Microsoft, but the Ori series received Switch ports, and it says right there on the Nintendo eShop, Microsoft Studios.
Oh boy!
We truly live in a different time now. I mean, Microsoft never had any obligations to put these games out like they did with Minecraft. They legitimately put Ori and the Blind Forest on Switch just because it made sense. This is a 2D action-adventure game that felt right at home on a Nintendo platform. Honestly, I bet it did better on here than it ever did on Xbox. And since Microsoft acquires loads of studios, even after their purchase, they have prior commitments to release their games on other platforms, and thus, the Xbox logo appears on PlayStation once more. Psychonauts 2, developed by Double Fine, which became an Xbox Game Studios team in 2019,
beat this still.
was originally crowdfunded and promised to get a PS4 version. Hey, with Minecraft, you kinda have to dig for the Microsoft or Xbox logos. Psychonauts 2 on PlayStation 4, front and center. One of the first things you see, or one of the last if you have a soul. I'd still do a double take if an Xbox logo appears on PlayStation and vice versa. Hell, in FIFA and PS4, I'm seeing Xbox logos on the jerseys. That ain't right. But hey, I guess Sony doesn't care. Hell, some of their biggest exclusives for PlayStation 5 were made by Xbox Studios. Yeah, similar to Psychonauts 2, Microsoft purchased ZeniMax, who owns Bethesda, who owns numerous other developers who made games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Initially, PlayStation 5 exclusives. Yeah, the deal to make those exclusives were inked before the Microsoft acquisition, so technically Microsoft published 2 PlayStation 5 only games, even if they would eventually come to Xbox. Doesn't matter, Microsoft's making money regardless, especially considering how not only did Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo release on PC, pretty much everything they release does. In 2016, Xbox Play Anywhere launched, which was an initiative by Microsoft to put basically all of the Xbox games they were releasing on both Xbox and personal computers. I mean, Microsoft owns Windows, so regardless, they're not losing money here. It's the consumer who gets to ask now, how do I want to give Microsoft money? There were the console exclusive defenders critical of this back then. How people had no reason to buy an Xbox One anymore because nearly all of its exclusives were either to eventually receive Windows ports or got Windows versions day and date with the Xbox release. I think at this point, it's fair to say, while there is some overlap, the PC audience and console audience are pretty damn different. Sure, there would be some people willing to buy an Xbox One that ended up not, considering many games were released on PC, so they just played them there. But there are still millions upon millions of people who only play on consoles. The game also releasing on PC will not change their minds. Because have you ever tried using
Scott
a PC?
had Battletoads.
I know I haven't.
Console exclusives getting releases on Windows is becoming more and more common because it doesn't really take away from anything. Like I said, the PC market, it's different. You can play your game on console and it's a streamlined experience. It just works. It's comfy, it's easy, it's great. But on PC, it's a bit more work to get things running. There's more things that can go wrong, but you can download mods, use a keyboard and mouse, mess around with the graphical settings. It's a win for the consumers because both markets get the game, and a win for the publishers considering they'll get more sales without ruining the integrity of the game being exclusive to a console. The exclusive only really matters when you're trying to persuade people to buy your console compared to another console. Everybody already owns a computer, and even then, you need a really good computer to run many of these games, and at that point, you're probably a silly little PC snob who doesn't want a PlayStation 5 anyway, so fine, here, you win! Ha! Finally, I can play God of War and Google Docs on the same thing. PlayStation games on PC. Select titles get the treatment here, and honestly, it makes sense.
Spider-Man actually was what got me to buy a PS5. I could have waited for the PC port. Verdict's still out if I feel like I wasted my money a bit.
I mean, Sony had a problem on the PS4, as many of the biggest exclusives would do crazy well, but within a year, be heavily discounted. Now they can resell older games at nearly full price to a completely new market. Plus, it keeps certain series fresh in the public's eye. But again, PC releases, I don't find to be a huge knock towards console exclusivity. Now that is. MLB The Show was a PlayStation exclusive franchise, the only decent baseball game on the market, the baseball equivalent to Madden and FIFA and NBA 2K. And since Sony had that, the other consoles had options. Yeah, I do think keeping the premier baseball
not bad though.
simulation game,
Super Mega Baseball is
only
good.
baseball simulation game on the market, exclusive to one console, that was a bit odd. And while Sony themselves developed and published the series for years, MLB themselves forced them to go multi-platform with the franchise. So while MLB publishes the game on all non-Sony consoles, Sony's San Diego studio still develops each entry, which means we have Xbox and Nintendo games with the PlayStation logos on them. God, this is fucking gross. Better than PlayStation Vita pets fucking off to Android phones. This is Connectables all over again. However, debatable.
That feels even weirder to me. Like, Connectimals kind of sounds like a name. PlayStation Vita Pets for Android is just like, what?
The biggest lost exclusive of Sony's wasn't Godfall. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, two of the biggest names during the PlayStation era, characters you can't help but associate with Sony. It's a problem. So I guess Universal Interactive Studios owned the rights to both of these characters and made a deal with Sony for them to publish them on PlayStation as exclusives, though when that deal expired, they saw potential in the popularity of both characters and decided to go multi-platform. Thank God. The original developers of the franchises, Naughty Dog and Insomniac, mostly stayed with Sony.
I never realized that.
Insomniac would do a couple multi-platform games and also a game exclusively with Microsoft on the Xbox One before being bought by Sony outright in 2019. So that left Crash and Spyro to hop around from developer to developer, publisher to publisher before falling into relative obscurity outside of appearances in Skylanders. However, the first three PlayStation Crash Bandicoots were remade from the ground up exclusively for the PlayStation 4 in the Insane Trilogy, which later went multi-platform, meaning we have PlayStation-owned and Naughty Dog-developed games on Nintendo Switch. They may be ass-old and remade by another studio, but that's still kind of wacky. And then Xbox bought the current owners of Crash and Spyro Activision, so what once was a PlayStation exclusive franchise became an Xbox one. Well, at least when Sony bought Insomniac Games, they got the rights to the Xbox exclusive Sunset Overdrive series, so who's laughing now? But Nintendo must be the most cold-hearted, lockdown company when it comes to spreading exclusives all over the place. Chances are, if it's a Nintendo exclusive game, it's staying a Nintendo exclusive game. What? Let's start off with the biggest mistake of my life. Many games that were once Wii U exclusives ended up getting re-releases on Sony and Microsoft platforms. First example, the Wonderful 101 on PlayStation 4. God, I deserve that. It just doesn't feel right. This was not only always a Wii U exclusive published by Nintendo in my eyes, but a wholly Nintendo franchise. Yet, even after it jumped ship to other platforms, there was evidence that Nintendo still owned the IP. The developer of the title, Platinum Games, published the re-release themselves, but wouldn't comment on who exactly owns what. There's a chance Nintendo simply didn't value the title all too much and allowed them to handle it on their own. They may have transferred the rights over, but they might have not. So even though the remaster removes any mention of Nintendo from the credits, there is reason to believe Nintendo owns a PlayStation 4 game. Two of them! Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water, another Wii U exclusive originally published by Nintendo with some development work done by them as well. Re-released on all consoles. It's weird. While Nintendo published the Wii U version, they didn't publish the Nintendo Switch release alongside, obviously, the competing consoles. But the Nintendo Switch version has their name in the credits, though the other platforms don't. So, like,
I feel like I just heard about this game.
They didn't publish this release. Same with Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, originally a Japanese-only Wii game published by Nintendo.
Just got announced.
Developed partially by them. It later got a re-release everywhere. Which means there are now multiple instances of Nintendo-developed games playable on Xbox and PlayStation. Ninja Gaiden 3.
Wait, that was like literally I'm pretty sure that was at the Nintendo Direct like literally yesterday. What's the turnaround on that segment? Oh my god, respect.
Razor's Edge and Lego City Undercover experienced similar fates, though they were simply just published by Nintendo, so nothing crazy in terms of development.
Like the day before this video came out.
Exclusive Lego game to be odd. Like, guys, you get Lego games on your consoles no matter what. Why not push for a game you may not get on your system otherwise? Devil's Third. Where? Oh, I've talked about this game at length. I may be the only person who can look you dead in the eyes and say I beat it. Originally meant to be an Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 game published by THQ, eventually Nintendo saved the game from cancellation, making it a Wii U exclusive and assisted with development here and there. Satoru Iwata is even listed in the game's credits. This is just as much of a Nintendo game as... yeah! This was a
Okay.
Wii U exclusive. What are you gonna do
Looks
about
like
it?
one
Play
for
the
sure.
online multiplayer portion for free on Microsoft Windows?
And for my next trick, I'm going to shut the f up.
Devil's Third Online. Now, I believe Nintendo probably assisted development solely on the Wii U version of the game, and in tandem, the single-player campaign. And they don't own the trademark to Devil's Third. The developer Valhalla Games Studios did, so I don't know if this is truly a Nintendo game on PC. But regardless, I don't know why sometimes it's sad to see a game go multi-platform. It should be a good thing. More people get to play it. But when you turn Zombie U from the Wii U into Zombie from the Xbox One, that's just depressing. One of the big launch titles for the system, Zombie U used the Wii U gamepad in some of the most interesting and involved ways. And Ubisoft was disappointed by the sales, so
Almost
scrap
made
the
me get a
sequel
Wii U.
development and port the game to other consoles 3 years later. Oh, and remove the U from the name. Let me get this straight. You wanted this to be a successful, long-running franchise, so you basically backed yourself into a corner by putting a U in the name and creating the entire gameplay concept around this one system's controller? You basically made it as awkward as possible to put the game on anything but the Wii U. So, yeah, the PC, PS4, and Xbox One got Zombies, stripping all Wii U functionality out while updating the visuals a very small bit, throwing some new weapons in there, and ripping the multiplayer out. Even if you didn't care for the Wii U gamepad gimmicks, you gotta admit, the game loses a ton of its charm without them, and ends up feeling like just another generic zombie game. Damn, with the gamepad gimmicks, it's annoying. Without them, it's generic. Step a foot in Zombie U shoes, you wouldn't last a day. Rayman Legends, only for Wii U, possible by the integral use of the gamepad. And I was only possible by the integral use of abstinence. After the disappointing sales of the M-rated Zombie U, Ubisoft delayed the E10 Plus rated Rayman Legends from its exclusive release on Wii U in February 2013 to
Really
a
good game.
multi-platform release in September of 2013. Yeah, thank God they didn't release this on Wii U so it could come out on the PlayStation Vita, the same month Grand Theft Auto 5 released. Damn, you really saved Rayman Legends from tough competition in February. X exclusives on the Wii U ain't nothing new. I mean, hell, Nintendo's responsible for most of them. But moving over to the Nintendo Switch, we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. Ripped off of that console and popped onto mobile phones.
Oh.
Well, half of it. Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. This is a tactic Sega's done before, releasing Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games on the iTunes App Store in 2009, based on the corresponding Mario and Sonic
I've never
title.
played
Sonic
one of these
2020
games.
is basically just a mobile phone version of Mario and Sonic 2020. Sega was the company who had the license to the Olympic Games. They owned the rights to Sonic. They were the developers and oftentimes publishers of the Mario and Sonic games. They had every right to put it out on mobile. Well, not every right. Of course, in comparison to the Switch release, this is heavily mobilized. The user interface, controls, it's not really Mario and Sonic 2020 on your phone. It's a mobile phone take on Mario and Sonic. So, I mean, it kind of counts, it kind of doesn't. The game released in the arcades as well, so, I mean, either way, this is an X exclusive. I win. Nintendo games on mobile. That's a conversation you never want to have with your son. Pokemon was the first Nintendo series to bite the bullet, but even then, the franchise normally acts independently of them. Pokemon is controlled by the Pokemon Company, a joint venture between Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. So while it's fair to call Pokemon a Nintendo series, the Pokemon Company calls many of the shots. So while Nintendo was initially incredibly against putting their titles out on mobile devices, Pokemon made the jump before all of that with the Pokemon trading card game, originally exclusive to my fingers. They eventually
played this
made
on
a Game Boy
computer.
Color version published by Nintendo until the early
Browser.
2010s when a version for Windows was released. Yeah, Microsoft and Sony games on PC, whatever. I've seen weirder stuff in my closet. A Nintendo game for Windows is creepy. iOS and Android versions eventually followed, and yeah, I mean, this makes all the sense in the world. It's a video game version of a card game played competitively. If you want your card game to maintain relevance, you don't make the video game version exclusive to WiiWare. But then, more Pokemon games were made available for smartphones. Next up, Pokemon Shuffle Mobile, a conversion of the Nintendo 3DS game. That was released at the height of this style of matching puzzle game and was free to play on the handheld, which made it feel that much more at home on smartphones. See, this was around the time that investors were pressuring Nintendo to break into the
so
mobile
cute.
space, make smartphone games. Nintendo refused, but as a consolation prize, they attempted free-to-play titles on their consoles. Steel Divers Subwars was the first big one. You can tell they tried. But eventually they started to adapt their more prominent franchises for free-to-play, taking the Pokemon puzzle game series Pokemon Troze and reworking a bit Bam! Pokemon Shuffle. Released exclusively on the 3DS in February 2015 to later launch on mobile devices that August, this was one of the first major instances of a Nintendo franchise heading to mobile, even if Pokemon is mainly controlled by the Pokemon Company. I always considered the Professor Layton series to be a Nintendo franchise, though that was never really the case. They published many of the titles outside of Japan, but the developer Level 5 retained the rights. So in came mobile ports of the games, which frankly this series works pretty well on the phone. But eventually, Nintendo started launching their own mobile titles. All original, though obviously heavy based on pre-existing games. Miitomo was fairly derivative of Tomodachi Life on the 3DS. Super Mario Run took most of the assets from New Super Mario Bros. U. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, Fire Emblem Heroes, Mario Kart Tour, all similar to their 3DS counterparts. These are all original games, but to see first-party Nintendo on other platforms at all is still kind of bizarre. Though mobile gaming is a similar beast to PC gaming, in the sense that putting your games on there doesn't take much away from that game or series being exclusive to a certain console. The markets are just different. Way more so mobile than PC, by the way. Which is why Sony and Microsoft have put out mobile renditions of their franchises in addition to Nintendo. But Nintendo's gone further than that. Not just mobile-specific versions of their series. There was a time where they made some of their most beloved and prolific Wii games available for
The NVIDIA Shield Android micro console.
Really?
Yeah, so NVIDIA supplied Nintendo with the chipset for the Nintendo Switch, the Tegra X1. I assume because of the deal between the two companies, they reached an agreement to put select Wii and GameCube titles on NVIDIA's platform line, the Shield. Only in China, though. So the NVIDIA Shield is basically just an Android device. There's a tablet version, a TV set-top box version similar to a Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, etc. China has some wacky laws when it comes to video games, so companies oftentimes have to find loopholes to get their products out there. Case in point, the iQube player, a Nintendo product released only in China for that specific market. Basically just a repackaged and redesigned Nintendo 64. So I'm sure to Nintendo, to sweeten their deal with Nvidia, they allowed their games to be downloadable to the Shield in China only because, well, that's not a huge deal on their end. Sure, Super Mario Galaxy is technically on Android now. That's embarrassing. But it's
so
only
weird.
available on one specific Android platform in a country where we never officially released it. Yeah, that definitely makes seeing the platforms listed on the Wikipedia page sting a whole lot less. The games themselves, well, there were only 6 games released. New Super Mario Bros. Wii,
Good ones,
Punch-Out!,
though.
The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Super Mario Galaxy,
Damn.
Mario Kart Wii, and Donkey Kong Country Returns. Basically all Wii games, so Twilight Princess is the GameCube version.
Not bad,
The
at
ability
least.
to download these games has since been discontinued, but looking at the footage, it's honestly a shame these versions never became more widespread. They run in 1080p HD. Everything is crisp and beautifully upscaled. The controls have been reworked in these titles to not require motion, so games like Donkey Kong Country Returns, where you have to damn near pop a gasket minus the near, just require a button press now for actions that used to require shaking the Wii remote, which honestly makes many of these the definitive official releases. In fact, it's fair to say when Super Mario Galaxy was re-released on Nintendo Switch via the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection, that version was heavily based on the NVIDIA Shield remaster, replacing the motion-controlled spin attack with a button press. An incredibly strange facet of Nintendo history, but not a bad one. Now, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, on the other hand, can spook even the deadest of corpses. Crystal Chronicles was a game
I had a friend
exclusive
so
focusing
excited
on
for this.
multiplayer using the Game Boy Advance for a dual-screen experience. Then, in 2020, Crystal Chronicles Remastered released on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 and mobile devices as well. You bring the game back announcing you're doing so 2 years before you actually do so just to lock the multiplayer behind the internet with downgraded design elements that make everything 10 times more frustrating? Well, I'm not sure if that's a good idea. A lot of the downsides of Crystal Chronicles Remastered can be traced back to the inclusion of mobile devices on the platform list. And making the game friendly for smartphones while also making sure it's consistent across each console meant that the game was kinda neutered in the process. And considering that's a sentiment that rung true for many of the games discussed here, especially the Wii U X exclusives, shows that sometimes the console a game was made for is ingrained into its DNA.
Yeah, my friend, I remember for Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, he was so excited talking about like every week in the month up running to turn release. Because it was free or whatever, as long as the original person owned the game up until like the last level and like all this stuff. And then the second it released, he never mentioned it again. He was most depressing moment of his life, I think.
Which makes playing some games on a certain company's box just feel right, even if it's entirely a placebo effect. Banjo-Kazooie was made for the Nintendo 64, then when when Microsoft bought the developer Rare, it was made exclusive for Xbox consoles until coming full circle. Microsoft allowed it to appear on Nintendo again via the Nintendo Switch Online service. Ew. Oh, what, that makes this an XX exclusive? The line is getting fuzzier by the day for a lot of these exclusives, which isn't a bad thing. Though the importance of exclusives will never go away. They do help as they inspire each of the console manufacturers to make better and better games to compete with each other. And while it would be nice to have all games available on every single platform, you're not gonna play every game. You were never meant to play every game. Why do you need every game on your platform? Yeah, it would
Sounds
be
like
nice
a challenge.
to play Spider-Man on my Xbox, but there's thousands of other games I can play on my Xbox, and I'm only gonna play like 4 of them. And if that's the case, maybe there's a chance I picked the wrong singular console to own if the games I want are exclusive to another. I don't know. Well, obviously there's far more exclusives to discuss, but I mainly wanted to talk about games that were published or even developed as first-party titles by the big three. Because honestly, it seems that every game developed by a third party that was once exclusive to a console eventually goes multi-platform.
It took forever,
I like
though.
looking at these games from companies you'd never expect to see elsewhere. Fine. Yeah, Nintendo would license their series out to other companies more often back in the day. Normally it would be for very specific instances, like edutainment software. Mario teaches typing on the PC. You know, it tastes better over time. But the most infamous example was their titles on the Philips CDI. Basically, Nintendo partnered with Sony
I love
to
watching
create a
YouTube
CD
videos about
add-on for
this.
the Super Nintendo. They reevaluated the contract and found some funny business they didn't like, so they dropped Sony from the project, partnering with their competitor at the time, Philips, for the CD add-on, embarrassing them and inspiring them to make their own video game console, the PlayStation. The SNES CD add-on never ended up releasing. Nintendo just told Philips, hey, here, you can use our characters for a couple of CDI games for working with us. Thanks.
Listen, man, I get atheism now.
These are absolutely horrible games, created with little to no understanding of the source material. These were not published, developed, or even overseen by Nintendo. They were simply games created because Philips had the rights to make them. But hey, this wasn't the first time. What about back during the Atari 2600 days? Yeah, Nintendo on Atari, ColecoVision, and television, and even computers at the time. Because remember, these were arcade games originally, and pretty much every arcade game came to home systems, which, in Donkey Kong's case, was handled by Coleco, who bundled in with the ColecoVision and made damn well sure the Atari and Intellivision versions stunk. What is that? Some kind of bad-looking monkey? Companies still had the rights to make ports of Nintendo arcade games for a bit after the launch of their own system, the NES, which is why the Atari 7800 has a version of Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, and Donkey Kong Jr. But Super Mario Brothers, that was locked down, only for the NES. Or was it? Super Mario Brothers special for Japanese PCs. Yeah, the developer Hudson Soft got the license from Nintendo to develop and publish a PC port of the game.
Wow.
Well, anything's possible. If they technically put Super Mario Brothers on PC, Octopath Traveler can break free from the shackles of being a Nintendo Switch exclusive published by Nintendo and appear on, I don't know, Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
That's too far! There needs to be limits to these types of things, and I'm sick of it! You can't just take that away from us Nintendo fans, and because you did, I'm gonna do something about it!
Oh.
Profit.
I always love callbacks. Like, that was a callback to the first joke in the video. It was nice. Gaming press conferences. I want to watch that. That looks like it would be fun. Alright. This was... I've liked... Like, I feel like he's released so many videos recently. Like, literally just, like, one a week. Yeah, for the past, like, 3 weeks. It's pretty good. I like the content. Enjoy watching it. Why is this under Sonic the Hedgehog? Was it even talked about in the video? Interesting. 422. Marble Blast is a really good game that was pre-installed on some Macs. Another point for Scott.
The Mac. 0.1 for Scott.
Oh. So to include Fatal Frame 4 in this video, he had to have seen that literally this morning and added it to the video before releasing it this evening. Okay, yeah, so it was literally yesterday. That's what I thought. Never mind. Yeah. Like, that was crazy. Like, I caught that. Scott the Woz is initially a YouTube exclusive series, but it eventually jumped to a TV port. Truly the X exclusive of all time. Does he... What? TV shows. Really? Wow. That's there. Okay, that's the okay, so history. He had a wait, blah 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 blah. Experimented with the first episode of Scott the wait, but where does it say television broadcast? Oh, I'm blind. Oh, and now it's on G4. Interesting. Sorry, I didn't realize that. That's so interesting. I didn't realize. Hmm. This is all like really new. Okay, sorry. I got lost. A Nintendo Direct State of Play and a Scott the Woz video on the same day? This is insane. True. I reacted to all of the Nintendo Direct, but then my mic fell down 2/3 in and I muted it to fix it. And apparently never made sure. Like, I think I unmuted it. I just didn't make sure it was plugged in and working properly. So that got lost to time, and that was really depressing because that was a good react. Never reacted to the State of Play because I was tilted. But PC Games Fest, December 4th, I'm going to react to that. One thing oh, you might hear my dog drinking some water. One thing I'd like to point out is in the Nintendo segment at 12:36, and you mentioned the Japanese Fatal Frame game. I think another big example of Nintendo putting exclusive games onto competing systems is Yokai Watch, which had the fourth game, Yokai Watch 4++, released on the PS4 in Japan. I mean, that makes sense. Despite being a Switch and 3DS only game series for the longest. Interesting. For those unaware, Ralts has a 1% encounter rate.
On a Nintendo series, the Pokemon Company calls many of the shots. So while Nintendo was initially incredibly against putting their titles out on mobile devices, Pokemon, while it's fair to name the franchise normally acts independently of them, Pokemon is controlled by the Pokemon Company, a joint venture between Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. So while it's fair to
what the heck is Ralts? I wanna know. He named his Ralts Phil as well. Oh, I'm so dumb. I didn't realize this was a Pokemon. I thought that was a different one. Huh. My little sister would love this Pokemon, honestly. When I was a kid, 6-in-1 Puzzle Collection was the only game I owned. Oh no. When I saw that Rat Trapper game on the screen, it awakened so many fun memories I didn't know I had. Thank you, Scott. Oh. I feel like so many of my Game Boy games, especially as I got older, kind of sucked. Again, when I say older, I mean like 8 or 10, because I didn't have a Game Boy for that long, but I just didn't get the good ones. I had a bad selection. Unlucky. Not even 2 minutes and I'm dying because I can't imagine such an explicit off-the-wall joke from a guy like Scott. The dick joke? Yeah, it was a good dick joke. For the first 20 seconds of this video, I was legitimately unsure whether or not I was watching a Scott the Woz out of context compilation. It's had a really good start. Let's just, rewatch it real quick.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Divorce rates are rising, so thought I'd help with that.
I need to rethink my pricing.
The console exclusive. A reason to purchase said console, or something to make pre-existing console owners specific console brand. Mario, Zelda, Pokemon on Nintendo, Uncharted, God of War.
He didn't have the dick joke in the first 20 seconds, so clearly this person's lying. Or I just skipped over it. Okay, this isn't I don't know why I'm doing this. Sorry. I'm apparently in a very time-wasting mood today. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.